This episode of Profiles in Risk is sponsored by Zywave. Insurers, brokers, and agencies are facing escalating risk and rising complexity. Only Zywave delivers a performance multiplier, equipping you with the tools to get risk right, unlock efficiency, and scale at new speeds. Find out more at 𝗧𝗵𝗶𝘀.com.
Hello and welcome to Profiles in Risk. This is your overly caffeinated and sleep-deprived host, Tony Cañas, again, recording from Costa Rica, drinking delicious coffee that basically grew right outside this window, a couple miles away to be exact, but it doesn't get any more fresh than this. This is the 8th episode I'm recording during this trip, and the last one because tomorrow morning I head to Vegas for Magic Live. Today, which I'm super excited. First time at Magic Live, super excited. Today, I have with me Peter Teresi, co-founder and CEO at Certificial. Pete, thank you for joining me today. How's it going?
Thank you for having me, Tony. Everything's going good. I may have you beat on the caffeine today, though. We're drinking straight espresso over here, so we're going to be seeing who's got the heightened animation today.
Good for you. Good for you.
You may have me beat. We'll see.
Yeah, naturally hyperactive and severely coffee addicted. So now, as a Costa Rican, I do have a very heightened ability to handle coffee. I can have coffee at 7 p.m., go to bed at 9, no problem. Good for you. So it looks like you are in New Jersey now, Cluster, New Jersey. Yeah. I don't know if that is in my mind, Jersey is two separate states. It's basically Jersey near Philly and Jersey near New York, and then in the middle, no man's land, basically nothing. I had no idea what's in the middle. Apparently Atlantic City and the Jersey Shore. So what part of Jersey are you actually in?
Yeah, so I'm literally only 10 minutes from the George Washington Bridge, so I'm right outside New York City.
So basically Jersey, New York side.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense for insurance. Fantastic. Yep. So basically New York side, July 31st, so dog days of summer, you are probably dealing with hot and humid, when will it be over? Oh my God, summer.
I love it. It's been 90-something degrees, and I love it. Today is the exception, though. I'm nervous. Hopefully I maintain power and internet because for some reason we just have a nasty storm coming through as we're speaking. So, but otherwise, yeah, it's been hot and crazy. But I got to tell you, I'm a huge fan of the summer. I dread the end of August because I just can't stand winters.
You should not live in New York, Atlanta, Georgia, where I live, or Phoenix or Vegas. Are very, very nice places.
I'm trying to convince the wife, so.
For the listeners, so storm going through. So if all of a sudden you see a change of outfit in both of us, it's just he lost electricity and we have to record the ending another day. But we'll give it our best. Fantastic. So Peter, we always give the chance for the guest to give the elevator pitch. What is Certificial?
Cool. Well, I'll try and do an elevator pitch on Certificial. To summarize it, we're a network and we sit between the insurance industry and all of the verticals, particularly focusing on insurance verification, traditionally known as a certificate of insurance process. And we're entering into this space in a very innovative way and really, transforming some legacy workflows and technology. So I would say, in short, we're really connecting the insurance industry with all of the verticals in a data-driven fashion. And I think, we'll dive into how and all the details and benefits and what that network provides. But in a nutshell, that's what we're doing.
Perfect. I like several things about that. So I like how you think of it as it's not we're automating the certificate process. Right. It's we sit between insurance and everybody who needs to know that an entity has insurance. I'm a former underwriter. I have never been a broker. My girlfriend worked at a large brokerage for a long time, always on the service side. First as an account manager, then as an account executive, and then she led a big team of account managers all over the country, small commercial. And the more that I heard about, oh, and I do a lot of recruiting for the agencies.
Sure.
So the more that I hear about the certificate process, the more that I'm kind of like, my goodness, this is a ridiculous, outdated, like does this process actually work at all? Because basically my understanding of it, and do correct me if I'm wrong, because I never
Yeah,
actually
no.
messed with it. Basically, the agency is certifying to some organization that there's a policy for this. But that's about it. Number one, it's a lot of work for the agency to get those, especially if you insure like contractors, right, or like transportation. There's several businesses where like the need for certificates is like a constant thing. And number two, the certificates don't really guarantee anything.
Yeah, there's lots of disclaimers on them.
Yeah, exactly. So like they might open you to an E&O, and it just seems like a really broken process that could
That's right.
really be modernized. So I think that the listeners in general will know at least as much as I do. So we don't need to explain certificate at a more basic level than I just did. But yeah, what does the process look like today, and what does it look like with Certificial?
Yeah, so I think you described a good portion of it. I might just color in a little bit of to that, right? I think it gets overlooked, especially when you're looking through the lens of the insurance industry and an agent or broker, the sensitivity that exists between the policyholder, which is the client, and the request for that COI. Because right, wrong, or indifferent, that certificate stands between the client commencing work and getting paid. That's a tough spot for an agency or any agent or a CSR rep to be in, because if I can't get my job done because I'm waiting on a paper cert, right? This is not the great, way of retaining clients, right? In fact, it might be one of the highest touch points with your client, because hopefully it's not claims, right? And but if it is, like they're doing business, they're in construction, they're in landscaping, these things that are high cert driven, and working, of course, in commercial, scenarios, they're going to need certs, and they're going to need an agency that's responsive and they can keep up with it. So I think the client retention is an interesting aspect of it. And you're right, it is the cost of business to an agency when you get into commercial line space. And along with all of those complexities, you rightfully noted the E&O exposure that comes along with this. So that's a lot of weight to put on, any broker agency just trying to, write
It,
business in a commercial lines fashion.
it's a lot of weight to put on your lowest paid employee, maybe even a Philippine a VA in the
Yeah.
Philippines,
Right.
uh, because
Yeah.
it's not a high value add activity. So it would be too expensive to have your most experienced people handling it.
Yeah. And if you're a small agency, it becomes, it's the same challenges are there, but your ability to, you almost have to start picking and choosing your customer base. It's like, can I afford to have this client? Because I'm actually losing money on them, right? Where,
Mhm.
if you're a global broker, you may have so much, you can bury those costs in different ways, right? Because you may have so many customers that, some make up for others, and it cancels itself out. But nonetheless, it's a challenge, right? And so, last but not least about that is the lack of transparency that exists within the process flow, because just creating a COI and getting out the door doesn't mean the job is done. The statistics that we have show that on many cases, the same certificate for the same request could be created upwards of 3 to 5 times before it's actually accepted. And that's
Why?
because there's no good way of understanding the end stakeholder, which would be the certificate holders, specific needs for that cert. Because despite all the disclaimers and all the things we know about, the process and all the aspects of it that are broken, I mean, I can give you very, very specific examples where, company name, right down to the exact spelling needs to be perfect. Certain endorsements, certain things that need to go on and accompany the COI have to be there. And until they are, they're not going to consider it compliant. And if it takes you 3 to 5 times to get it right, that's potentially 3, 5 days at minimal that I can't get to work, right? As the supplier or policyholder kind of
Yeah,
stuck in this process.
having to reissue a certificate is a lose. Like
Which
nobody
is
wanted
every
to do
time.
it. We didn't
Nobody.
get paid for it. It's wasted effort.
Yeah.
We're inefficient at doing it. The client's only getting pissed off because
Yeah.
they're not able to start the job.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, that's a lose.
And the last thing to note about this then is because it's a document-driven process in its legacy format, each one of those transactions has to be on the receiving side. The certificate holder is using either humans as well or technology to convert that document back into data to do that analysis to see if it's even going to be accepted each and every time.
All
Right?
right. All right.
So it's broken, right? And all for at best 1 day of compliance. Because what if I don't pay my premium?
Yeah,
What if I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
pay my bill next month? What if I cancel my policy? Right? So then you get all the what ifs that go along with it. So we do all of this for reality is a false sense of compliance. Right, we get the certificate holders got a false sense of compliance, and because they're utilizing that certificate, for an entire year in many cases, every day past the day it's issued, that E&O exposure gets a little bit greater for the insurance industry. Hence all the disclaimers on the form. So that's why when we looked at this process, it was a challenge to say the least, because it's so ingrained in business. It's so ingrained in almost every vertical that there's no light switch moment where you're like, okay, everybody's going to just switch over to a new way and doing things. Because the topic and the idea of doing something innovative and more real time in this space is not new. I think what we've created that is unique is the approach. How do you execute the idea versus what is the actual idea? And that's what I think was the more difficult part, right? How do you change industries and how they work together for so many years while still supporting the current state, but moving towards something that is innovative, that gets us to a more desirable place to say, you know what, if we're putting the effort into this, at least we're getting a valuable outcome. Because right now, without an organization like Certificial and without some way of transforming this process, I would be on the side of saying we're better off not doing this than continuing to do this.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So tell me about the new world with
Cool.
Certificial.
So when we looked at the landscape, what we really found is that if you go back long enough, I don't know if you check out my background, I spent a number of years with Accord, right? So I was technically responsible for standards globally. So the certificate of insurance being one of the first assets created by the organization, I spent a lot of time working with forms and state regulators and all that kind of stuff. So that's what got me ingrained in the process, and of course working very closely with agents and brokers. Looking at the landscape, you go far enough back when this form was almost created. I mean, the concept of an agency management system wasn't, it wasn't like the average age. Right, I think it's almost expected, right? If you're running any kind of book of business today, you're likely in an agency management system. Not maybe the case, 35 years ago. And the same thing on the receiving side of certificate holders. So the fact that this became a document-driven process, a paper-driven process from its beginning stages makes sense. When you look at it today, it seems so archaic, and how did this ever happen, right? But the reality is that everything has evolved around it, but nothing has evolved in the ability to actually execute the COI. So what we find is that we actually have powerful systems on either end of this process. Agency management systems, vendor management systems, which is where these certs are ultimately ending up, which means that it starts as data, it ends up as data, but we're using documents as a communication channel for information. That's not the intended use of the form. That's not the intended use of documents, right? I mean, at least not in anything that's a monitoring type of scenario, right? I often use the analogy, I wouldn't give a finance person a snapshot of my bank account. That's not going to do any good, right? So what's good? How much can you really do with a snapshot of my insurance from one day? So the new world is really looking at this and saying, how do we connect these systems? Because it's not the insurance systems that are actually at fault or you know, or the problem. And it's not the vendor management. It's actually the communication layer. It's the fact that email is the most innovative way that we've gone electronic in this process, you know, as a step up from physical mail, fax, and that's it. We've been living in the world of email. So what we built with Certificial, and the reason why we identify the platform more as a network, is because we've built the API capabilities to allow for bi-directional data sharing between the insurance systems and the vendor management platforms. So, you know, when you look on either side of Certificial, it's not necessarily that you'll see first the agent or the cert holder. What you'll actually find is the agency management system, the vendor management system, and then if you go one more layer out for each, you'll find the agent and or the certificate holder. And it was very important to us that we connect the systems, because there's no desire in our organization or a mission to move folks off of these platforms. It's just about getting them to work more, you know, just have a data first experience, quite honestly. And with that, we're able to properly position the certificate of insurance to be what we call a smart COI. Because as long as it's a static document, that's what a traditional certificate of insurance has and will always be. A smart COI, every data element on that form is tied back to something. And so as it changes, it's a living, breathing document. And not only do you have the data, but you always have the most current COI on file representing that information at that moment. That's what gets us to a place where we can reduce E&O exposure for the insurance industry as a result of that. And we can enable folks to actually monitor insurance. I mean, the whole reason this process began 50-something years ago. So, you know, I think that's what we're doing, and that's what we've kind of accomplished. And we've got, you know, at this point, you know, tons and, you know, near, you know, millions of transactions that are working in just that fashion to be able to accomplish that end result.
Fantastic. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So from the perspective of insurance agents and behind them insurance carriers, what is the implementation like to get on Certificial?
So it varies based on the management system, but we do our best to make that as streamlined as possible, and it's a continued, you know, ongoing, you know, evolving process. In some cases, it is a click of a button. In other cases, you know, it might be a week process to get set up with certain parameters necessary in order to have, you know, data touch points. You know, and look, in insurance, you know, we still have folks that have some of these systems on site. Right? They're not even cloud hosted. So, you know, sometimes you got to get firewalls and, you know, IPs, and, you know, it gets a little tricky, but nonetheless, the main integration points are there. And so once connectivity is established, it's pretty simple to get data flowing and get up and running. So, you know, over the years, we've gotten to a point where it's much less of a lift and much less of a time commitment to get kind of onboarded.
Yeah. Okay. And the end result is the certificate, which is no longer really a certificate. It's now a live verification.
Well, it's still an Accord certificate of insurance.
Okay.
It's just that what the technology enables is the automatic versioning of the COI every time a data element changes. And I'm not just talking about limits. I'm talking about scheduled information. It could be a VIN number and you know, an example I often like to use, because we're always thinking about additions or cancellations, but even something as simple as taking a vehicle off the road. That vehicle is no longer covered on that policy. Meanwhile, it's sitting on who knows how many COIs in the workforce. You know, we got to get that out of there. That's your E&O exposure, and that's your false sense of compliance, right? So the automatic versioning of that document as data changes is what makes it a smart COI. But at the end of the day, it's still a state-approved Accord certificate of insurance, which keeps the agency in regulation with the insurance, all the regulation that we have to adhere to protect and make sure that our E&O insurance is even going to cover us. Because I can tell you right now, if an insurance agent evidences anything other than a state-approved form, their E&O insurance won't cover them in a claim. So it's so important that we protect that. And, you know, but at the same point, I don't want that state-approved form to then be the thing that breaks this process and makes it not work in many other ways. So that's, going back to the challenge. How do you do this? Do it right, do it in a way in which we can adopt this technology without risk, but also move towards something that actually works, in today's, technology.
And it's not even an overnight processing. It's a pretty immediate.
Oh yeah, we got this down to seconds.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I mean, we have folks that are literally using this on real-time capacity. So like even in lobbies of when someone's coming on site to do work, I mean, tying it into card access, to be like able to do real-time insurance checks before someone enters a building. This is how it should be, this is how we protect our business, what I mean? Without this, what are you really doing? It's just,
All right.
more risk than reward there.
What's the pricing philosophy, revenue model? Who pays for it?
Yeah. So that was another thing that was really important to us, is that, the way we look at it is insurance agents and brokers have kind of bought into the technology, which is the management systems. So what we've done is we've figured out ways to partner with the management systems to enable this technology and empower the independent agents, carriers included, who are having to service COIs and have a direct, aspect of their business. So in order to do that, we have to get funding from somewhere. So if you go downstream enough, you look at the certificate holders and the vendor management platforms, we do, because this could be a data-driven process and they don't have to process in OCR search 3 and 5 times, and they have a better level of service that they can provide to certificate holders. We're an ROI on that side of the house. So 90% of our revenue actually comes from the solution provider partners that we have, i.e. vendor management systems. And that's where, enables us to build our technology and equip the insurance industry. Because let's face it, nobody in the insurance industry would create a cert unless a certificate holder, which is outside the insurance industry, was asking for it. Now, some can say it's a cost of business, that's fine, but it's the certificate holder who needs to maintain and monitor that insurance. So we've come up with a way where it's an ROI for them. That's where we're funded. We build our technology, and we actually then empower the insurance industry. So any agent or broker who's interested in this technology and reaches out to Certificial, it's not a sales call that we're having, other than just trying to sell you on the benefits of using the platform. But we're really here to empower the industry with the tools they need to be able to downstream and service this workflow.
So from the perspective of my listeners who are insurance people, it's a win-win. You're not looking for, and it takes some of your work away, and it takes some of your exposure away. It makes your clients happier.
Absolutely. And you should see some of the stuff we're doing with self-servicing for clients right now. That's incredibly powerful. So we can even enable, when you have those, if you're an agency and you do have those power users who just want to get out there and issue COIs, we've got some great tech for that. And again, the one thing that we always keep at the forefront of everything we do is how do we enable self-servicing? How do we enable this capabilities without introducing E&O risk? It's always part of the equation and part of the process.
All right. So I'm always curious on the origin story. You told me a little bit.
Sure.
And looking at your LinkedIn, so you spent a good number of years, almost 14 years at Accord, and then ended up being CEO of the Accord Solutions Group for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So you got to see kind of behind the curtain of how we exchange information in archaic ways in our industry. There's a million different places where this could be improved. Why did you end up focusing on certificates?
It's a good question. I think, in so many of the years I've spent in the insurance industry, the overarching theme I've always heard was innovation, and how do we become a more, digital, basically industry. And when I looked at the certificate of insurance, to me, I said, this is where we intersect with every other vertical. This is the place we can have the most impact, not in maybe our day-to-day workflows, but as far as how the insurance industry is is seen and is working with every other business and every other vertical. The COI, 400 million transactions a year just in the US alone. Just in the US alone. This is a global insurance problem or process, depending how you look at it. So it was really attractive to me to be able to solve for something that I think is so impactful to our industry. And quite honestly, being where I was in my seat at 𝗏𝗏, I was more or less being tasked with it by agents and brokers to say, what are we going to do about this? Because it's only becoming a larger problem, as more and more demand and more need. So it was a real problem for our industry that needed to be solved. And I thought that it was also a great opportunity to move our industry forward when it comes to innovation and when it comes to doing things more electronic, which we all know we need to do. We're not seen as the industry that's at the forefront of, pushing the needle, unfortunately. Exactly.
Right. So looking at the website, which I always like to do, the all-in-one smart COI platform. Stop collecting and generating static PDFs. Smart COIs deliver real-time insurance compliance that you can trust. That makes absolutely perfect sense. So in the products page, we have for agents and brokerages, COI issuance, which we've talked about, COI tracking for your clients, and we've talked a little bit about that. Insurance tracking API for tech platforms. So what do you mean by insurance tracking API?
So that is actually what we spoke about, which is where the vendor management platforms that exist right now. So for example, like when you think about certs, a lot of the vendor management systems are servicing a vertical. So commercial transportation, the needs in commercial transportation and all that's necessary to know that a vendor is compliant is slightly different than construction, for an example, or maybe supply chain. And so there's vendor management solutions out there that focus on these specific areas, commercial property, being another one. The common denominator between all of them is insurance and certificates of insurance. The other 10 service offerings are going to be more unique to that kind of workflow and that type of business. So we partner with those guys because they're the subject matter expertise in construction. You're never going to have one platform that does everything for everybody. So that's why we take the approach of embedding the Certificial platform inside these vendor management systems that are servicing those specific needs, right? But now if you go one step back, when you mentioned this, cert tracking or the client aspect of it, the other part about this that's kind of interesting is let's go back to being an agent now. And if you're an agent and you have a client who's in construction, so you're selling them policies, right, for their business. But in construction, it's a really great example of usually a policyholder is issuing out COIs, but they have their own subcontractors that they need to collect them for. So in the insurance industry, we also have programs where remember I mentioned that self-service portal where they can go and issue their own COIs and they can kind of self-service certificates. On that same portal, with one click of a button, they could flip the application and change their stakeholder position to now monitor their subcontractors. So that's that's one of many unique things that we do here at Certificial, because we look at this process from end to end, and we're really the only solution on the market that truly looks at it from every stakeholder's position involved, is what enables us to do that. So if you're an agent and you may say, well, maybe issuing certs isn't my problem, and maybe even my client issuing certs isn't the problem, but you have a client that you're an underwriter, right? So carriers more and more now are basically saying, I may not rewrite your policy unless you can show me that you have a good way of maintaining and monitoring your subcontractors, and that you're
makes sense, yeah.
Right, and mitigating that risk downstream. So if you do have a client that does need to also track COIs more directly, our self-service portal is an interchangeable role that enables them to do everything COI, not just send, but also receive.
Perfect. And for insurtechs, COI issuance API. So basically,
yeah, that's going to be more the insurance side. So if you're, if you're an agency management system, or you're like we're working with some brand new insurtechs that are coming in and doing some really cool things in policy admin spaces, and they're building this tech and they're going, do I need to now build a cert issuance platform? No, you do not. Just take Certificial, embed it right in there, and connect with every vertical and do it right. What we don't need is more PDF creators. And when we do this in isolation, that's all we're creating. Inside the insurance industry, we're creating PDF creators. Outside the insurance industry, we're creating PDF consumers. Like, we got to get away from that. We need to do a data-driven process. And so that's why we try and stay in our swim lane. We like white labeling, embed ourselves in the tech. It's, stay where you are. So let's just make it better. It's not about trying to convince people to move from one system to another. It's empowering the systems they're in to do things better.
Perfect. And on LinkedIn, it looks like you've been at this for about 6 years since founding Certificial.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty mature insurtech. Is there for the rest of 2025, is there anything new in the development pipeline that you can already talk about that you're excited about?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's and I'll use this as a two-part, but I think we've all seen AI come into the space in an aggressive way, right? In 2025. Not that it's new. I mean, it's been around, right? But it's hitting in different ways. We're excited about, at the main core of what we do and what the network provides, right? I don't really see AI being too much of an enabler and helping there, because, like I said, it's a data-to-data driven process that's, connecting systems. But on when you look at that workflow, on either side of that workflow, there is still a lot of work that CSRs and agents are doing, and/or compliance managers are doing, where we're enabling a lot of great AI capabilities on the tail end of either one of these processes. And what makes AI better is being able to continuously feed it data, which is what the network does, right? So it's really about, I think there's a lot of efforts for AI modules that I think are powerful, but if you're only working off of static COIs, then you're not really feeding those models, and you're not really putting them to good use day in and day out, right? And so we're also strong, supporters of those AI models at the tail end or beginning, depending on how you look at it, on either end of the process. But there's still an absolute need to continue to feed them, which the network enables. So I think a combination of those two things has gotten us really excited. Maybe that wasn't there 6 years ago when we launched this, right? But now we look at it and we see not only the capabilities from the initial vision, but the extension of that to even help and, get less hands on keyboards at the far end of these processes, even with a full data-driven, real-time approach.
Fantastic. I love seeing innovation from insurtechs created by us. What I mean by us is the insurance people who worked in this industry, who saw a problem, and created tools that truly address the problems we have, as opposed to the insurtech 1.0, what I call a tech hammer looking for an insurance nail.
Yeah.
So yes, love it. Love it. And most of the most exciting insurtechs I'm talking to nowadays are doing exactly that, are grabbing some piece of the process that we just do not do very well, because we do in the same way for the last 50 years.
That's right.
And turning it into a completely modern, forward-looking, AI-enabled, although that's kind of optional, but a completely modern, forward-looking. What would it be like if we were building the industry from scratch today?
Right.
So absolutely love it. Fantastic.
And another enablement of this that I think we're very excited about, and I think you can relate to as a former underwriter, is data. Like, I don't know if there's enough awareness inside the insurance industry of how much data we actually lack that would be incredibly valuable to us, that, by the way, sits inside those vendor management systems in structured data format. And what I'm referring to is, remember earlier in the conversation, we talked about a cert needing to be issued 3 to 5 times because there's no good way of understanding the insurance requirements and what's necessary. Well, that's because the only place you can find that information is in MSAs and in contracts. And agents are having to play paralegal in order to figure this stuff out or attempt to figure it out. And, it's as broken as anything else. But what we're doing is we're taking the structured insurance requirements that are in all those vendor management systems that we're integrated with, and we're bringing it to the forefront of the insurance process. So when you go and you get a cert request, we're able to layer those requirements on top and into those policy details. So what we're doing is when an agent is going to respond and issue a COI, they get a real-time full compliance check. They know whether that cert's going to be accepted or not on the other end before they ever hit the button to send it out. And not only is that helping with efficiency, but we always store all that information. We have a large client right now that's making changes to their requirements, and we have a way of rolling out requirement changes so they can say, we'll do it over the course of 12 months. So as suppliers' contracts renew, those new requirements will now become effective. Our system is reaching out to the agent 6 months plus in advance to say, 9 months in advance at times to say, hey, there are new requirements coming for your holder, and this is what they are. Now, we have the ability to get ahead of this, speak to our clients. Maybe they need to increase their insurance if they want to maintain that client, or they have to start some negotiation early on. And because we're storing all of this stuff in structured data format, this is also something that if a client is looking to change their insurance, we can do an impact analysis and say, well, if you do, you need to be aware of X, Y, and Z. We cannot advise from an insurance perspective this level of service to customers because we lack this data today, right? And it's, one of many things that we're kind of excited about. Once you have a data-driven process, I think the point I'm attempting to make here is it opens up a lot of doors and a lot of opportunities to doing way more things and allowing the time we save to be used for more valuable client-driven services, which at the end of the day, often, end up being cross and upsell opportunities. Right?
It makes absolutely perfect sense. You've got your pitch down.
Oh, thanks, man.
And if I'm not mistaken, like you're a technical guy, like you grew up.
Yeah, I'm a straight tech guy. It's funny. I was on the team with our sales team earlier, and I was saying, listen, I need you guys to tell me. I don't know nothing about sales.
You're a natural. You're absolutely a natural. Fantastic.
You know what it is? Maybe in any other thing I may fail. I just happen to have passion about this. I love this. It's my baby, and so I think that gives me the ability.
It comes across. And yeah. I'm a huge fan of that, of founders who are passionate about what they're doing, and are solving real world problems that we really have that they deeply understand because they lived them.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pete, fantastic. I'm glad that this is happening, and yeah, gotta get this into every shop in the country. It's a plan. Stupid problem that in 2025 it's a stupid problem. It was driving me crazy 10 years ago. I was a middle market underwriter at Liberty, and working from home on Fridays. My girlfriend was working from home also, 4 feet away, just like one wall away. She was at a major broker. I was not her underwriter, but basically the data lives in digital format in her AMS, and then it gets printed to PDF to get sent to a poor underwriter, right? And then we waste a bunch of time with UAs processing, etc., processors turning that into data that we can then quote on. Why don't we exchange all of this electronically, for God's sake? So I'm glad that somebody's doing it on the certificate side, because it is ultimately, unless a claim has happened, the certificate is how we interact with the outside world when they need to know that there is coverage. So yes, this is radically important. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, listen, I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate giving the forum to, to get our message out there, right? I mean, again, in a nutshell, we're here to support. We're here to help agents be more efficient, and and so yeah, and I thank you for having us on, and we'd love to connect again in the future and share some, hopefully some more exciting updates.
Absolutely. For the listeners, when this goes live, Pete is tagged on LinkedIn. The company is like tagged on LinkedIn. Both his LinkedIn and the company website are below. And I do know that you guys hit plenty of conferences because I see your team out on the road. And on the website, right at the very top, get a demo. Check it out. There's really no reason for once, like honestly, like 700 episodes, for once, you are not the people that my guest is trying to get money from.
That's right.
So take advantage of this one.
Yep.
Because it is a pain. If you do commercial lines, this is a pain you have. And for once, you're not the one paying for the solution.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you very much.
We're always thrilled and happy about that. You know, I love that we have that model, and I love that we can actually say we're here in partnership and not overstretch the definition of the word.